What's up, everybody? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the greatest trade ever. This is a book by Gregory Zuckerman, and this book is about probably the greatest trade ever, which is John Paulson's bet against subprime mortgages during the 2008 financial crisis. And the main reason I wanted to get this book was because it was referenced in the book More Money Than God that I previously reviewed. And if you remember in that book discussed a bunch of different hedge fund managers, and it focused a lot on George Soros, among other people. And in there, it talked about John Paulson and the trade that he pulled off in this book. And this book was referenced a lot in that book, so I wanted to check it out. And this is a really great book. If you watch the movie The Big Short, I think it's called The Big Short, with Christian Bale, it's basically about this stuff. And The Big Short, the book was written by Michael Lewis, and I think this book is way better. And actually, the character that Christian Bale played is referenced in this book, Michael Burry. The problem is Michael Burry wasn't the person that pulled off the greatest trade ever. It was actually John Paulson, the main character in this book. And this book is about the greatest trade ever pulled off by John Paulson, who made about $15 billion from that trade, which was even better than George Soros's bet against the pound sterling. And the reason I wanted to learn about that, I like learning about the people that make tons of money in a little period of time, as we all like to learn, or we all want to do. We all want to make a lot of money in a short period of time, right? And from a self-help perspective, which is what this channel is primarily about, it's good to learn that type of psychology. And that's really what you can take away from this book from a self-help perspective, is that there's a certain mindset you have to get into to make a lot of money. You have to, a lot of times you have to be contrarian. You have to be willing to do what other people are not doing, whether you're a hedge fund manager in this case, or whether you own your own startup company. Because if you're gonna make one of the riskiest trades in the history of mankind, or you're trying to start one of the biggest companies ever, then you're going to need to have a certain mindset. You're going to need to have a mindset that you can overcome anything, and you really have to believe in what you're doing. And I'm reading another book right now, which is The Everything Store, which is about Jeff Bezos, and it's a similar thing. He's also very determined, and John Paulson was very determined. This book starts out talking about John Paulson's early career and how quirky he was, and he even talks about his early life, and it gets into the particulars of that, but then it just breaks out into these other people like Michael Burry, Jeff Green, other people that mimic the trade that John Paulson did. And so it jumps back and forth between there, but the primary person is John Paulson. He was the one that was most convinced of this trade and put the most money in it and made the most. He stuck with it the longest. Because that's the other thing that you have to realize if you're going to do things like this, whether it's investing or a startup, you're going to face a lot of adversity. And in the case of a hedge fund manager, you're most likely going to face investors that want their money back as soon as there's a downturn, which in this case, they bought insurance against mortgages. And if you buy insurance, just like car insurance, you're paying for something that's not going to pay off unless something bad happens. And so he was paying millions of dollars a year, and he's generating losses from that. And really the only scenario where it pays out is if the whole market crashes. So you're betting against everybody else in the market. And then on top of that, if everything does go wrong, you have to be willing to bet that you're going to get paid. For example, if housing crashes in the United States, people would tell John Paulson, well, why do you think you're going to get paid? So you're fighting that you're going to be right, which is the opposite of everything else is going on in the market. And then on top of that you're going to get paid if the market falls out. And really the only reason he got paid is because a lot of these banks got bailed out. But there's another guy in this book, Jeffrey Green, who was a retail, just a regular investor. And he knew John Paulson and was friends with him, and he wanted to mimic the trade. And so he went out of his way to be able to mimic the trade personally. He dealt with an investment banker. He was very wealthy. And to be able to do that takes a lot of guts. Number one, to be convinced of that, and then to go through all these hoops to be able to execute that trade, and then to stick with it when everybody's telling you what you're doing is wrong. So that's another crazy person with determination in this story. And so in conclusion, this book is really well written. It's a really great history of the financial crisis. And I think the things we can learn from here are that sometimes it takes being a contrarian. But if you are going to be a contrarian, then you have to be a contrarian to the bone and believe in yourself all the way through and through. And you have to be willing to stick with your deeply held beliefs for a long time. And I struggle with that myself. Just, constantly pursuing the same thing and sticking with it. And another thing is, to reach our biggest goals, sometimes you're going to have to face a lot of adversity, and it won't be really quick either. The trades in this book took years and years to pull off, and they had to face adversity for years with little to no return, because these trades did not offer return until everything went bust. So you might face adversity like that in finance, in your business that you're trying to grow, but that's what you have to be willing to stick with. But you also have to be willing to fail if you're going to go that route. There's not a lot of stock trading ideas in here or finance ideas. It's just like general overview of the history. But I still wanted to get this book to learn the mindset of John Paulson, to learn more about the biggest trade in history. And this book really did a great job of that. You have to be an outsider, and the way that John Paulson went about this was very unique, and you just have to be willing to go against the grain. So I really recommend this book if you're interested in the financial crisis or learning about the greatest trade ever. That's my review today. To get similar reviews about self-help and then finance, make sure to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and thanks for watching.